Hello, everybody, and welcome to the premiere, the number one episode of the Fandom Podcast. I am your host, Matthew Kearns. Now, since this is the first episode, I thought I'd give you guys a little background. What is this show exactly? You might be asking if you clicked on the video or you're listening to the audio version. Well, simply put, I'm a nerd. If you can't tell by all the things behind me, and if you haven't been following me on my ventures throughout YouTube, and I love so many things that fall under fandoms and, comic books, video games, all this stuff. And I thought that I should just have a podcast where my guests can come on and talk about the things that they love, whatever those things are. It is a nerdy Joe Rogan podcast. Now, what I mean by that is this show is extremely free-flowing. We're not bound to any specific topic, except for we sort of have a broad topic to start with, and then there's just and then we could just go in deep with it. So I hope you all enjoy the journey. My premier guest, you may know him from Nerd Culture on YouTube. You also may know him from his multiple appearances on Take Three Productions. That would be Ryan Permison. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you very much for having me. It's good to be here. Wow, first episode of a new series. No pressure on me, is there? I hope not.
No. Well, the funny thing is there shouldn't be, because
I know.
Funny thing about this topic, which if you can't tell by my shirt or the title of the video that you clicked on, it's funny because this is more relation to you and me on YouTube. And I'm not sure if you remember, but my first show I ever hosted on Take Three was a show called the Movie Fandom Show. You were my guest, and the film you brought on to talk about was none other than Man of Steel. That was the first time I ever met you, and that was the first, which, by the way, anyone who's been following me for a while, there is actually, in every episode of the Fandom Podcast, there's a little Easter egg and nod to the Movie Fandom Show beyond the name, which I didn't even realize until I was putting together the notes for this episode, that I was like, wow, I kind of just took I took like a couple letters away, and I got a new podcast name, but there's a little something. I wonder if anyone paying attention knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, Ryan, so the topic we're talking about is Superman. This topic was voted on by my Twitter followers. So guys, follow me on Twitter because I'm going to be doing that a lot more often. I'm going to be throwing out topics. You can vote on what you want to hear about. And they voted. They wanted to hear about Superman. And Ryan was one of the first people I thought about. So Ryan, first question for you is, can you remember your first sort of your intro to Superman, I guess, or the first time you really fell in love with the character?
Ooh, really fell in love with the character. Okay, so it's an interesting story because I remember growing up watching the original movies starring the late great Christopher Reeve. And after that, I remember watching certain series that featured the character, and I remember really enjoying those, but I didn't really become I became a bigger fan of this character, and I fell in love with Superman. That moment when I fell in love with Superman particularly happened in the year 2006. It was when the 100th episode of Smallville, the TV series, aired in January of 2006. That was, by the way, if you haven't seen this episode, I strongly recommend that you watch. I recommend you watch the series in its entirety, but this one episode in particular, episode 100, it was called Reckoning. That is the episode, spoiler alert, we lose Jonathan Kent in that episode. That is when Clark loses his dad. And that episode hit me in the heart. It really hit me hard in the feels because 6 weeks prior to that episode going on the air, I believe it was on the WB at the time before it was renamed the CW, that was when I lost my father. 6 weeks before that episode even went on the air. So when I watched that episode, it hit me in the heart, it hit me in the feels, and it made me realize that I knew Superman has weaknesses. I mean, we all know he has kryptonite, but when he lost his dad, I was just bawling. Like, I was crying at the end during the funeral sequence. The entire episode I thought was beautifully made from beginning to end. I thought the acting was very strong. The writing was great. The moments that hit you really hit hard, and they were great. Even though they were emotionally, they're emotionally hard on you, yes, but they work for the story that the creators of the show, Al Gough and Miles Miller, are trying to tell. So when that episode aired, that is when I fell in love with the character, and that is when I became 100%, no bones about it, an official Superman fan.
Wow, that's a great story. Wow, man, I want to cry, everybody. So for me, I think I've talked about it in other things, but obviously I haven't talked about it here. My intro to sort of the comic book world growing up in the early aughts was cartoons. Teen Titans, Justice League Unlimited, Justice League, Batman, Superman animated series. And that was my first intro to Superman was Justice League Unlimited, in which he was a very prominent member of the team, had a lot of great moments. But and I have told this before on things, I was a Batman kid first before I was a Superman guy. I was, because Batman was cool, he was awesome. And then also like with Teen Titans, I was a Robin fan on that show, so that also sort of helped the whole like I was a Batman guy. And then when I was in late elementary school, I want to say it was fifth grade. I got all they did really crappy $12 value pack from Walmart of all the Chris Reeve Superman movies, like bare bones, nothing on it. I think like they had the trailers, and that was like a special feature. It was like, oh, the trailers here, which that was right around the time I think YouTube was starting, so that was probably cool because when like you could pull up the trailer easily on the internet. And I think I bought it mainly because I couldn't find a Batman version. Because I probably would buy a Batman version. I was like, all right, Superman's cool, I guess. It was really that first Chris Reeve movie did it in for me. Like I just, I just put that movie on, and my life in comics changed. And then as time went on, that portrayal of that character by Christopher Reeves just really impacted me so much so that like I just like Batman was still cool, but I was like, no, this guy's cool in a 100% different way. And from that day forward, I even remember it was on Valentine's Day. It was the first time I saw it. It was a Sunday that year because I remember I stopped watching the movie halfway through, a little bit after the helicopter scene because we had to go to church. I remember they used to have like they still have, I should say, these like pamphlets, and they always had like flower sales and all this stuff. And my church always had they always had like these little like things you could sign if you were like a new member or like if you were putting money in an envelope for offering. So we always had these main pencils, and so my mom would always give me and my brother the pencils during the sermon because we were down low on elementary school kids and our attention spans were non-existent. And I remember, I wish I still had it, but I remember that day I drew my depiction of the plane sequence. So I had the building, I had the helicopter, I had Lois falling, I had Superman flying, because that scene, I mean, it's in my top 10 favorite top 5 favorite movie scenes of all time. It's my favorite scene from a comic book movie ever, not just Superman. It's such a perfect encapsulation of that character, which we can get into if we want to talk about just our favorite moments from him. But that was the moment he became my hero. So Ryan, is there anything you want to talk about Superman? Is there a show, a movie? I know there's a show you love, so if you want to talk about that, you can go ahead. Or is there a comic book storyline, anything to do with the Man of Steel that you want to talk about?
I mean, there's a lot of directions I can take this, but I'll put it like this. After I was introduced to the character when I was a kid growing up, we were watching the Christopher Reeve movies. I remember my aunt coming over to babysit us one night. It was my brother and I. And I remember 93, Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman was coming on. And I think it was that night. I think it was the night it premiered on ABC that my aunt came over with a box full of pizza.
See, you got to see that great 90s bumper where it's like, Small town boy Clark Kent just moved into town. He met big city Lois Lane. What a terrible bumper for a great show.
I mean,
I love it.
I may remember seeing that. I don't know. That particularly doesn't come to mind. But I just remember her bringing over the pizza. My brother and I sitting in front of the TV and we're watching the show, and I'm thinking to myself, this is fun. This is fun to watch. This is good stuff. You had a great cast. The chemistry between Dean Cain and Terry Hatcher is palpable. It's incredible. So to hear that theme music and to watch that series growing up as a kid, that was something special. There was a lot of things that I enjoyed about the 90s, but that was certainly one of the highlights, is watching either the actual like originally aired episodes on ABC or the reruns that they had on TNT. I remember watching those. That was some fun stuff. A little bit later on, it was Smallville. And then after that, it was, a few other iterations. Like just recently, I mean, when it comes to comic book runs, I didn't get into comic books until like three years ago. Ooh. When I started reading comic books, the thing that I enjoyed most, one of the comic runs I enjoyed most featuring Superman, was DC's Kingdom Come by Mark Waid and Alex Ross.
That's a good one.
I think that's the best. To me, that's my favorite graphic novel. And granted, I know I got a lot to learn and a lot to read, but as far as I'm concerned, Kingdom Come is the best thing DC I think has ever done, and that's the artistry, the wording, the storyline that is so deep. It's so spiritual. Yeah. It's like that's the stuff you don't always hear about in comic or see in comic books, I should say. And the artistry by Alex Ross. I mean, you're going to put someone on the pantheon of greatest artists in any medium of all time. You got to put Alex Ross on that list because he's a beast. And Mark Waid is a heck of a writer because he's been writing for how many decades now? Like 3, almost. I mean, over 2, maybe probably over 3 now. The guy knows his stuff. So I got to give credit where credit's due. But I will say, I didn't see this when it was originally airing. I feel bad about this because I should have watched this when I was a kid. I would have liked the heck out of this thing. But I bought Superman the Animated Series Volume 1 through a Amazon shopping spree that I went on. And I watched Volume 1, aka Season 1 of Superman the Animated Series. I'm like, dang, this show is good. And this is going to sound almost like sacrilege to some of the fans out there, but this is just how I feel. I enjoy Superman the Animated Series more than Batman the Animated Series. I know that's going to sound like a hot take, but I enjoy it. I like the characters. I like the voice cast. I mean, you got Tim Daly, Dana Delaney, and who's the other one? Clancy Brown as Lex Luthor. That guy.
Such a solid Dana Delaney, honestly.
She's so good.
One of the most upsetting things is the fact that she never got tapped to play. I mean, she could still do, but the fact that she never got tapped to play a live action Lois Lane, because she is freaking great. And she was also in Tombstone with Kurt Russell. Let that be known. She was doing great.
And she crossed over on the Batman series, being in Batman: Mask of the Phantasm as Andrea Beaumont. And so
that's right. I found that out kind of recently. I was like it was one of those things where it's like I should have picked up on that. But that now when I listen to it, I'm just like, I'm just like, how did I not know that was Dana Delaney? But
she crossed over. She could be a Batman love interest, and she could be Superman's love interest.
Well, technically, Lois Lane, if you saw the crossover episodes, or it's a movie, technically, she's even in Superman's verse, she still is a love interest.
The Batman Superman movie, she was the love interest to Bruce Wayne in that movie. It was good.
So I gotta say, Lois and Clark, New Adventures of Superman. I'll touch on several points. Incredible show. I was born in 97, so I was born, I mean, depending on what month the show stopped airing, I was either born right after it stopped. I was born in June of 97, so it was either right after it stopped airing or like a couple of months before it did. So I didn't get to see its original run. I started watching it on a network that sadly doesn't exist anymore called the Hub Network. When I was in late elementary school, early high school.
The Hub,
it was a great place to watch a lot of old reruns. But they had the Men in Black cartoon. I remember that as well. And I watched that show because obviously they had Batman and Superman as well. And then I was like, oh, well, a Superman show I've never seen. I should watch this. And first episode, because I watched it in its syndication.
Oh, okay.
Or its reruns from episode 1 to the final episode. So I watched, I think it was
54 episodes in total, I believe.
I think they would do I think it was an episode night during the weekend on Fridays. I think they did 2 episodes, I'm remembering. I feel like I remember, but regardless, then I would just be it's 7 o'clock, Hub Network, It's Lois and Clark time, and that show is so Terry Hatcher. She's probably like right. So tough to say. She's like because Erica Delancey. That's
Durance,
not
yeah.
Durance. I'm thinking
Erica
of Dana
Durance.
Delaney.
It's okay.
She is my favorite Lois Lane. And then when it comes to number 2, it's always a fight between Margot Kidder and Terry Hatcher because they're both great for different reasons.
Yeah.
And then Dean Cain, his Clark Kent is top 3 for me, easy. I mean, because Clark and his Superman, a little less so, but he's Clark, but that's because the show's whole inception was to focus more on Clark than Superman, to make Clark, because, like, you look at the George Reeves, the Avengers Superman, like, it's kind of just a body, like, you're kind of just like, all right, every time Clark's on screen, you're kind of just like, when's Superman getting here? It was in the Chris Reeves one when, like, Clark had like a personality to him beyond just like I'm Superman. But in that show, I think Dean Cain did such a good job of like you cared about him when he was Clark and when he was Superman. So yeah, that show's great. As for comics, I mean, obviously, Kingdom Come was incredible. My favorite graphic novel of all time is Death of Superman. I think Death of Superman is just so unlike you. I've been reading comics since I was a little kid. My dad, because of his job, he had friends at DC Comics, and he had a friend who would every month send him the month's worth of comics just in this box, and my dad would just come home, open the box, and there was just all. And the cool thing was, so as I said, my intro to the comic and everything was these cartoon shows, Teen Titans and Justice League Unlimited being the top 2. And DC was really smart that I think they understood that because they had comics running at the time. They had a Justice League Unlimited comic and a comic called Teen Titans Go, not the new series, that was in the same art style as the shows. I mean, the writing was as similar as you could get, but those were the first comics I read. Because I was like, oh, this is like those shows. I know that. And then from that, like, it was easy to transition into, regular old Action Comics. Still have my first Action Comics with one of the coolest covers of a train and Clark, like, still in the suit with glasses, but his shirt's ripped open to where you see the S and he's, like, holding back the train. I remember reading that just because I was like, that's the coolest cover ever. But Death of Superman I read in middle school. My middle school library had it, and I was like, oh, I'll take this out and read it. And I just remember like not wanting to put it down. Like the minute you start reading, it opens with Doomsday just bursting out of the prison and then all the way through. And it's so, I always describe it as it's the most cinematic comic I've ever read. Like the shots and everything, which is why the anime movie I think is so good because it just, the shots and everything just feels like storyboards to a movie. And it also just, again, continues to prove like why I love that character so much, because spoilers, the title of the comic wasn't enough. When Superman is dying, one of my favorite things is when Lois runs over to him. I'm not sure, have you read the graphic novel?
I have read the Death of Superman storyline. Okay. I finally got around to reading it a little while ago, but yeah, I did.
Because one of my favorite things, and just why I love this character, Lois runs over to Superman. He is literally dying, and the first thing he asks is Doomsday. And she says, you got him. But what I love is, if she had said he's still up, he would have pushed Lois out of the way and gotten up on his last legs and would have kept fighting. It's so perfect. It's great. I adore that. Kingdom Come is really good too. Which leads me to ask you, let's keep it with Superman. What did you think about? Did you watch the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Yes, I did. I've only, with my regards to the history of CW verse of shows, I only watch them now for the crossovers. And yes, I did see Crisis on Infinite Earths, so I know exactly what happened.
Okay, so what I want to ask is, what did you think of Brandon Routh's interpretation of Kingdom Come Superman?
I mean, for what they had to do in a very short amount of time, because you got all these characters in this massive crossover and there's so much to do in a very short period of time. So you can't really give a whole lot of screen time to certain characters as you can do for others, because it's a big story. It's a big storyline. The comic book is massive. It's intimidating for me to even look at when I see it in my comic book store. It's like, I don't even know if I want to read that. It's too much, Jerry. It's too much. But what did I think of Brandon Routh's interpretation? For what they had to do in a very short amount of time, I thought it was good. I like what they did with him. I like what they did. You know, they reflected on the past of the Christopher Reeve movies. They honored his legacy. They honored the Superman Returns. They honored everything that Brandon Routh has done up to that point in his career respectfully. So, do I think it's like what the biggest highlight of the overall crossover? Not necessarily, but it is a good moment for him. So I'm happy that Brandon, and he said this in interviews too. He said, "I'm glad I got a chance to finally put some closure to the character and, you know, end it the way that it was, I think in a certain extent, the way it was meant to end for him." So good on Brandon Routh. Good on him for wearing the suit, because that suit, oh man, I know that suit. That's Kingdom Come. Like that's serious. Like that's real. So congratulations to Brandon Routh. It was a good turnout for him. I'm happy for him.
I adored him in that. I thought he was so good. I mean, I've always, for the issues I have with Superman Returns, he is not my issues with that movie. And I think he, in like you said, the limited stuff, he just, from the moment you meet him in the Daily Planet to his last scene, I was just like, this is incredible. And then I love how they reference the Chris Reeves, because his last shot is the flying in space and the smile at camera. But yeah, and that suit was freaking awesome. I love how they took that suit, because the comic is very stylized, but they've really made it look like the comic. They just pulled it straight from the pages. So now we've talked about the crossovers. Now I have to ask you, you did speak about this show, but let's just get into it. What's your favorite season of Smallville? No, let's just talk general, because I know you love the show as much as I do. Why do you love Smallville so much, Ryan?
Wow, it's a big question. But if I had to describe it as best I could, why do I love Smallville? Because the 100th episode hit me in the feels, and it made me realize that, I heard about the rumblings of, because my brother was a comic book reader when he was younger, and he had the Death of Superman comic in that what was it, that plastic black, sleeve that has the blood.
I have that up on my shelf.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So he had that. I knew that Superman has gone through some serious stuff in his comic book life, like lifetime as a character. But when that episode aired, it made me realize, wow, I just lost someone really dear to me. I'm not the only one who has suffered a great loss. Like Superman, Clark Kent is more human than a lot of people are. So that's what makes him relatable. So why do I love Smallville? Because I can relate to Clark Kent on so many different levels. And it's not the powers thing, because that's a comic book, that's a completely separate set of cards. But I can relate to him on what it feels like to feel lost and to feel alone and to feel like you really don't have any friends, because you have these traits about yourself that you're not fully understanding of them yet, and you're not sure if you want to accept them for who you are. Like in my case, I have Asperger's syndrome, which is a part of autism. Because I have that helps me relate to Clark Kent in the series of Smallville so much more, because I know what it's like to have something like, whether it's a disability, or in this case I choose to look at it as an ability, not a disability, but to have this ability and not really know what to do with it and not sure where to take it, at least in the early parts when I was first diagnosed. Nowadays I don't have any problem with it, but it was difficult in the beginning. This was even before Smallville came into the picture. But I love the show just because I relate to Clark Kent. I like it because I think the casting's really good. The theme song by Remy Zero, Save Me, gets me every time, because it's a energetic theme song, even though it's really on the nose of what the show's about. Save me. Like, we know that, but I don't care. I like the theme song. And plus, the characters, the crossovers they did with other DC characters by incorporating them into the mythology of Smallville, whether it's the Justice Society of America, whether it's Zatanna, whether it's Bart Allen as Impulse / the Flash, or Aquaman, like all these other characters pop in, and that was my introduction to the DC universe in a way. It really was. So yeah, I just love the series for those I know I kind of went in a couple of different directions with that answer, but my answer is I like it because I can relate to Clark Kent, and I like how they enhance the mythology with not only Clark Kent as a person and as a character and as a hero, but they incorporate other DC characters that I'm not familiar with that they introduced me to, like Zatanna. Come on, I mean, Serinda Swan. She did a great job. I'm not gonna lie. As far as what my favorite season is, because I know you were touching on this earlier, but you were a little not sure whether you want to throw that
Well, it was
question
a
at my.
joke at first, but if you want
No,
to
it's
talk
okay.
about what your
I'm
favorite
more than
season
happy to
is, go
answer the
right ahead.
question that was
And
been
don't be afraid, Ryan. This is the whole
teased.
point of the show. Don't be afraid to go in depth and to go into a million different directions.
Okay,
You do
okay.
you.
So, my favorite season of Smallville is season 7, and that is when they introduced Kara, aka Supergirl. That is when they introduced more about the House of L, things that have happened on Krypton, a little bit more about Clark Kent and his destiny and where he's going to go. We also get to see Lex Luthor become the evil, sadistic, can't stop, wants to know everything about Clark Kent, and just pushes everything forward with his character. In Michael Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor's character, when he finds the orb and he goes to the Forge of Solitude, and then it collapses on both him and Clark because he says, "I'm sorry, I loved you like a brother, Clark, but it has to end this way." It's like, wow, this is like, I never thought I would see stuff like this on screen. Like, I didn't think they would have Lex find out about him and his secrets. That, I mean, I knew the show's been on for 7 years. I get that, but I didn't think they would do it at that point. Like, I just didn't know that. But it was a great surprise, and the casting of a somewhat unknown actress by the name of Laura Vandervoort as Kara/Supergirl. My goodness gracious, did they hit the jackpot when they cast her? Because she is beautiful, she's strong, she's intelligent, and she will not let anything or anyone stop her from getting what she wants, whether it's answers from Lex, whether it's saving Clark from Brainiac. I mean, just everything about it is great. And the creators of the show, Al Gough and Miles Miller, wrote about this in the season 7 pamphlet that you get on the DVD set. They said that one of the highlights of season 7 was the episode where Supergirl has to regain her memories and save Clark from that cage full of kryptonite, because they want to make a point that sometimes even Superman needs to be saved. That makes Superman more human. That means that he's vulnerable. He has flaws. He needs help in certain situations that he can't necessarily get himself out of. So season 7, Laura Vandervoort, Supergirl, that season, and Lex becoming Lex Luthor, the evil, sadistic man that we all wanted him to be, comes to fruition. So I think, yeah, season 7, you're the best. And I have all 10 seasons on DVD to prove it. And if I ever see Laura Vandervoort again, I may just have her sign my season 7 DVD set. I don't know, but we'll
I'm
see.
surprised you haven't done that already, Ryan.
Well, I participated in one of her Twitter contests, and I won a free giveaway from her. So I do have a large 11x17 print of her as Supergirl, and then she writes a personal message to me on the back of it.
Aww.
And she signed it and everything and personalized it. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. And then I had her sign my Into the Blue 2, The Reef DVD, because she was in that movie. She was the co-lead with Alex Cormack, I believe is how you say his name, from the OC. Alex Carmack? I believe that's how you say his name. But yeah, she was the co-lead in that movie. So, fun fact.
Fun fact. Just have a graphic. Laura I can't do graphics.
You can always look it up on Google Images.
So for me, I grew up. I had seen episodes of Smallville when it was on because it ran for 10 seasons. It started in 2001 and ended in 2011. So I'd seen some stuff of it, but I didn't really. I think because honestly, I didn't watch it because I didn't know it was a Superman show. Mm-hmm. I honestly think that's why. Because even though, I should have known Smallville, but even watching the cartoons and everything, it's like it didn't stick in my head. And I think because the writers wanted, he didn't wear a red, white, and blue, and so it was not easy for me to be oh, Superman. So I wish I would have known because I would have watched the later seasons in their original run, but I watched it afterwards, and I loved it. For a lot of the same reasons you talked about, I think what they did with Clark, really just bring him down and making him, like I talked about with Dean Cain in Lois and Clark, really just making Clark an established character and giving him those sort of trials and tribulations of a regular teenager and a young man, and then also with the powers and all the stuff when Jor-El was introduced into the show in season 2. It's just so great, and then building up to the finale, like it's so cool. And you've gone on that journey, and I think, like you said, as someone who, like I myself had, still have. I always say I had, but I still have attention deficit disorder, and when I was younger, was a lot worse. And then you relate to Clark, you relate to like feeling like an outsider, and like no one's like me. It's like the conversation he has with his parents when he sticks his hand in the shredder and he pulls it out. He's like, I'm not normal. It's just incredible, and I think all the characters, barring Lana, just kills me. I can't stand Lana. But everyone else is great. We can talk about that later.
No, it's okay. You're not the first person to say that on a non-Superman related show. When people bring up certain characters that they're not too big of a fan of, I should say. Lana comes up a lot.
I will say this before I get back to my love of the show.
I can kind of understand why.
Really fine in the first couple of seasons. My problem is the whole magnet thing of like they make up, they break up, it's like just decide. Oh, she's with Lex now. Nope, she wants to be with Clark. It's
they keep kind of shifting the deck there a little bit, and she keeps going from side to side. And the other thing is,
it gets in the way of another relationship on the show.
But by the way, the scene you brought up with the wood chipper, I haven't rewatched the series from beginning to end in a long time. One of these days to do that. When he sticks his hand in the wood chipper and he brings it out, he's like, "Does this look normal to you? I'd give anything to be normal." Like, that was me when I was much younger, and when I got first diagnosed. I'm like, I give anything, and I mean anything, to be normal. Just to be like one of the regular kids, going about his day, hanging out with his friends, doing his thing. But when you realize, you have these abilities, and you just got to deal with them. You got to deal with them the best way you know how, and accept them for who you are, because they're a part of you, but they don't necessarily define you. So in the show, Smallville kind of touches on that as they go throughout the course of the series with Clark and his abilities. So that's just more reason to relate to the show. It's so good about that.
It really is. God, that pilot is really insanely good.
It's a solid pilot.
It's a really solid pilot.
And the other thing is, do you remember the song that's at the end of the show when he tries to have a dance with Lana, and it's,
I don't remember the whole
Okay, I can tell you about
it,
but I know
the scene.
Yeah, I remember the scene, and when he plays that music, and he's looking out at the moonlight, and it's a beautiful night, and he's looking at all these people driving up to Lana's house and dropping her off at her house after homecoming, and she's, living the life, and she's having a good, and then Clark has that, that dream sequence where he's actually dancing with Lana, but then he realizes it's not real, it's just a dream. And then he goes to the window, and he says, "Thanks for the dance, Lana." And then she feels like she hears something. She turns around, and you hear that music.
Yeah, it's really good.
And you hear that music, and you're like, you know what? I'm in high school. Like, I'm not at that particular point in time, but if I were in high school and I saw all those people rolling up to Lana's house, and she's like the popular girl, and she's getting all the attention, and I'm not, but not for that reason, but just because I don't have as many friends as I thought I had, but she does, because she's the queen. So when I watch that sequence, I'm like, I can feel what Clark's feeling right now. I know how you feel. Because we've all had our eyes on a beautiful girl or a handsome guy that we want to, just saying, that we want to meet and get to know better, and we don't get that opportunity because we're too scared, or we're not sure how to approach this person or whatever. That scene by the way, the music they chose for Smallville, great music choices, great music, and I have some of those songs on my iPod, so just tossing that out there.
Clark Kent is super, particularly in that first season, super relatable if you were a middle class or
shy high school
low class high schooler. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just kind of love that. I love the progression. You get to see him and who he grows into. But there are two characters that make me love this show so much.
Mm-hmm.
Lois Lane. I already said favorite depiction of Lois Lane. I think they just, from the first episode in season 4, she's funny, she's witty, she's fast talking. You totally understand why Clark Kent would be into her. But then she also, you get, as the seasons go on, she's very emotional, and you feel that connection between her and Clark. But the most important is, this is my favorite depiction of Jonathan Kent. I think John Schneider is so pitch perfect And Jonathan Kent essentially in the comics and like the first movie, his like main role is to be like good guy dad who dies. Not in all depictions, like in Lois and Clark, he doesn't die, but like in most depictions, it's like he's good guy and then he dies because that death has to affect Clark. Here, it's like he's such a three-dimensional character that, like you said, when the death comes, like
it hits
hits you so much because it doesn't feel like that's his sole purpose. Like it doesn't feel like he's just there to die, and that's why it hits you so hard. And then, of course, all his cameos in the series after that are always perfect. Whenever he visits Clark, he's so good. And then what I love is that he feels like a real dad. Like there are moments when he is like, Clark, you cannot do this, but he also, like, you understand why Clark becomes Superman. And that if he didn't wind up, and again, nothing against Annette O'Toole, she's also great as Martha, but like that relation between Clark and Jonathan is so important. You're like, you know, if he hadn't been sent and arrived to Jonathan Kent, Clark would have been a different person. Yeah, he's so good. I love him. I always like, man, oh God, I just want to meet John Schneider and tell him how much I love that portrayal.
I'm with you on that. On a personal note, like I would love to meet John Schneider, because I had a friend of mine go to a convention that John Schneider was a guest at, and he got me John Schneider's autograph on a Jonathan Kent photo from Smallville. And I told him, I said to my friend, I said, if you meet John Schneider and you're able to get his autograph for me, if you can, that'd be great, but no pressure. He went as far as to have John Schneider personally make it out and say to Ryan, glad I was there for episode 100, because that's when I started watching the show. So glad I was there for episode 100, John Schneider / Jonathan Kent. And I was like, man, that's so nice. That is so nice for someone he's never met before, and someone who's physically not there to get that autograph, but my friend is doing it on my behalf. For him to go out of his way to sign it like that, I mean, that's amazing. And it's a picture of him and, what is it, Clark from the dream sequence in season 10, when Jonathan is warning him that something dark is coming, and they're on the farm. Yeah. It's that scene. So he has that sign on that, and I'm like,
it's a long-haired Jonathan Kent. Yeah.
It's the long-haired Jonathan Kent. Yeah, it's the long-haired
Corona
Jonathan
hair,
Kent
I guess we would say now.
He grew it out when he passed away. So it was, he had him sign that for me, and I was, oh man, that's so good. So I do hope to meet, John Schneider in personally. Thank him for that print, and to get a picture with him and just say, hey, you're on my favorite series of all time, and I just want to say thank you.
Those three, it's like, I want to meet, obviously, Tom. I want to meet Erica, and I want to meet Jonathan.
Hey, I already got you beat. I already got you beat on one of them. I've already met Erica. I've already met Erica, and I met Laura twice, and I've met Aaron Ashmore. So,
all right. Well, this is the end of episode 1, everybody, because I'm gonna smack Ryan in the head. No. So my favorite season.
It's okay.
It's tough to say, but I think it's between season 9 and 10, and the reason why is because
the blur.
Lana is finally gone from the series. Well, Lois and Clark are finally thing, and also he is, although not Superman, he is acting like Superman. Like, he's working for the Daily Planet. He has the alter ego. He goes into the phone booth, and it's just like, I mean, you also get a lot of Michael Ironside in those seasons as General Lane, who
General Sam
Michael
Lane,
Ironside, and that casting, like I love, because I love Top Gun, so, and the original Total Recall, so like I love Mike Ironside. Even in like Free Willy, he's awesome as the villain in Free Willy.
Oh man, I forgot about that.
He's great as the villain in Free Willy, and when he pops up as General Lang, I'm just like, oh man, he's so perfectly cast. It's just like, you can tell, like oh man. So those seasons, I think, are so perfect. They're just great. Even though he's not Superman, it's a Superman show at that point. And the finale is also just, I mean, if you love Smallville, seeing him run out, you know, it's perfect. It's wonderful. I mean, episodes that I love, I mean, I gotta say, if you watch Take 3, I did an episode of my show Second Look on an episode I did on the season 2 finale, which might be my favorite episode. I just think that is so just like, it's such a perfect encapsulation of what the series is so early on, of just like Clark trying to do something good and screwing up. Like, that's what this show is sometimes. Like, the fact that he's like, no, I can't leave. I need to stay with my friends and my family, so I'm going to put this kryptonite into the ship and I'm going to destroy Jor-El so I can stay. And it ends up screwing up. Mom and dad get in the accident, and Marfa loses the baby, which is just so
That's
upsetting
true.
when you watch. Like, when you rewatch season 2, you're just like, whenever they're talking about the baby and everything, you're just like, oh no, I know what's gonna happen here. But then, but yeah, it really, it's that final scene when Lana's trying to talk to him, and he's just like, the Clark Kent you know is a lie. And he puts on the red kryptonite ring, gets on the bike, he's riding away, and then you just hear Jor-El. Oh yeah, he says, "You will obey me, Cal." Which, by the way, Terrence Stamp, the casting of him, because if you're a Superman fan, obviously
Yeah.
everyone knows him as new General Zod. So I just thought he's just got such a cool voice. I love that casting. But yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes. And then also I love episode 200. I think that's a really great episode where you go back into the past with these things. For one, it's a really funny episode, like with Lois Lane, where she's like, I went to this school. Like, I'm not just Clark Kent's date. Like, I went here. And then again, revisiting things like the funeral, where
Oh,
it's like, why did you bring me here? Because this is a
yep.
defining moment for you. The moment when you started to blame yourself.
Yeah,
Your father
Homecoming.
didn't
Yeah.
have to protect you, but he did. Every day he chose to be your protector, just like you chose to protect the air. Oh, it's so. And then of course you get, he meets adult Clark in the elevator, which is awesome. It's so. God, that episode's great. I might watch that episode after this now, just talking about it. I love it so much. But Ryan, do you have a favorite? Now I ask, do you have a favorite episode of Smallville?
I mean,
I'm asking a lot of tough questions to Ryan.
yeah,
My
it's
poor
fine.
first guest.
Yeah, they are tough questions. I'm not gonna lie, but no, Homecoming that you just described, the episode 200, that is so good, so good. When he has to accept himself for who he is and all his faults, all his positives, his negatives, and then he says goodbye to his dad at the very end, at the funeral, at the graveyard scene. Man, heavy stuff, but it had to be done. So I dig it, and even the promo for that episode was great. The song they use in that 1 minute promo, fantastic. So much so that I downloaded it onto my iPod. Anyway, as far as favorite episodes, I mean, obviously I got to go with Reckoning, because that's when it all started for me.
Yeah.
That's when everything is just hit me, and it made me realize that this character is more than just a guy who wears, the crest and the blue and red outfit. This is he may be an alien from another planet, but he's so much more than that. He's so human, you know. He suffers like we suffer. He knows the pain that I have felt and other things that I've struggled with. I just relate to that. So Reckoning's probably my all-time favorite, just because it's where it started for me. But if I had to pick some other episodes, I got to go with Homecoming. I want to go with the crossover with the Justice Society of America. Justice is Coming. I thought that was really good. The crossovers I think are fantastic. Like the one with, I think it was the Legion of Superheroes from the 31st century. Saturn Girl, Lightning Lad, all those guys. Like, even that one is focusing on getting Doomsday out of Chloe, but at the same time, it's foretelling of the potential future that Clark has. It's like, you may be known as Clark Kent now, but one day you'll be known as, hey, don't say it. Don't say it. Like, it's, we don't want to burden you with anything. Like, the crossovers are so good. And I think the Zatanna episode was good. The first appearance of Zatanna, I thought that was really good. It was called Hex, from season 8 or 9, when what was it? Chloe wishes she was Lois, so they switch like bodies or whatever it is, and she gets hexed, and Zatanna's like the mastery of the whole thing, and I'm like, I like this Zatanna. I like the actress. I'm curious about where this is going. I want to see where this goes, man. So those episodes are fun. The ones where they bring it and incorporate other DC characters are probably some of my all-time favorites. If I had to go into like a deeper dive and pick like even more specific favorite episodes featuring like focusing on the character of Clark and his friends, that's going to take a while. But Homecoming, Reckoning, the crossovers with other heroes in the Justice Society of America, the Legion of Superheroes crossover, the battle between him and Zod at the end of season 9 on top of the building, That was something else. I think the finale, like when they deliver a finale, they know how to punch you in the face with those finales. They're so good. When he gets caught in the Phantom Zone, and then when Supergirl gets caught, and all this other stuff is going on, or the Lex versus Clark at the very end with the Force of Solitude collapsing on top of him, like that. That's insane. But those are just some of my favorite episodes / moments from the Smallville series.
So we've talked about Smallville, we've talked about some shows, but now another tough question for you, or maybe not. I don't know. Favorite movie? Superman's been in movies since the 40s. What is your favorite Superman movie?
Superman 3 with Richard Pryor. No, it's not.
Hey, I love a storyline in that movie.
It's not. Yeah, I know. I think I know which storyline you're referring to. No. Definitely not Superman 3. No, my favorite Superman movie of all time. I don't think it's going to be extremely difficult to top this movie because the tone of it, the score by Hans Zimmer, the acting by a young up-and-coming actor at the time. I mean, he was famous for The Tudors, yes, but I didn't know he was on that, so bear with me. Henry Cavill, 2013's Man of Steel, which deserves a lot more credit than it has right now. It's to a certain degree, I still think the film is still underrated. But with that being said, the casting of an unknown by the name of Henry Cavill, the casting of Jor-El of Russell Crowe is brilliant. The casting of Kevin Costner, who I was afraid was going to overshadow the movie because of how big his star is, because of his reputation. He's just a big name actor. I don't know if he can handle this or not. But Kevin Costner and Diane freaking Lane as Martha Kent. Honestly, they say on fast food restaurants, when you have it your way, it just tastes better. If I had this my way, I would have given the entire cast and crew of Man of Steel an honorary Oscar for Best Ensemble Cast, Best Ensemble Crew, and Best Director for Zack Snyder. And this is coming from somebody who's not a big fan of Zack Snyder to begin with. I saw his work in 300, thought it was good, not great. Saw what he did with Watchmen, and it made me depressed, sad, and made me never want to watch that movie ever again, which I haven't, by the way.
I've never seen that, so.
Watchmen's it's a very disturbing, dark, not very good
movie. I've never even read the comics. So.
Okay, I haven't read the comic, but just watching the movie that it's based off of, it'll make you very sad for days. It'll make you just feel very, what did I just watch? It'll make you have one of those feelings. But other than that, Zack Snyder did those movies, and I'm thinking, I don't know if he can handle this movie. This is a big project. I don't know if he can handle this. He didn't do a very good job with Watchmen, I don't think. But he comes in, and when a marketing campaign for Man of Steel is so good, when the marketing campaign is great and the film is just as great, if not better, that means that the filmmakers, the marketers, the producers, the writers, everybody who worked on this film, and as well as the marketing department, I'm just saying, when you do something like that, you've done your job. So for me, it's Man of Steel. I saw the movie 5 times. Wow. 5 times in theaters. And I've watched it a number of times on Blu-ray. I even got the Blu-ray Steelbook from Walmart a couple years ago because it was on sale for $10. I couldn't say no. Plus, it had extra special features that the other Blu-ray that I had didn't. So I want more. So I got it. Thank you, Walmart.
I have the Target version of the Blu-ray where it's got the cool lenticular cover where it's Superman, then it's Zod, and it also has an art book in it. So that's the version I have
it. But that's the version. The Walmart version is what I have, and it's great. So yes, the long and the short of this answer, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you watching and listening at home, Man of Steel is my favorite Superman movie of all time.
So that's actually talking about the marketing. Everyone talks about Sherlock 3 with Ideal Hope, which is one of my favorite movie trailers ever. But I want to ask you, because when I talk about Man of Steel's marketing, some people don't remember this. Do you remember the teaser trailers they had? The Jor-El and Jonathan Kent ones, where it was the same footage, but with a Jonathan Kent voiceover and then Jor-El?
Yeah, I love them.
I watch those like all the time on YouTube. Like I'll just pull. They're so, and I just like that fact that it's like, because it's one thing to have like one teaser with Jonathan Kent footage and a voiceover and art, but to have it be the same footage, like just edit. I love editing trailers. If you guys don't follow my own personal channel, I have my own fan-made trailers, so it's just I like the fact that like both voiceovers sync up so perfectly to the footage, and they use Lord of the Rings music. That the marketing for that movie is insane. I still have my pass from the Walmart screening. We got to see it a day later.
Yes.
I remember
I have
begging
mine.
my parents. I remember there was a website for this thing that had the countdown to when you could go to Walmart and buy the tickets. And I asked my mom, and she came home, and it was part of my birthday gift that year. It was me and my brother and my sister went to go and see Man of Steel, and that movie is incredible. And I love. It's not my favorite, but it's very close. It's in my top 6 favorite comic book movies of all time. It's very, very close. I have to mention before I talk about my favorite, Chris Maloney as the Air Force commander is a badass. Like, I remember, this is gonna, I guess, like, Katie Couric had a talk show at this time, and she had a whole episode with Man of Steel, and that was the first time I saw this scene, which is one of my favorite moments from the movie, which is the helicopter is crashed. Her name's escaping me now. Theora, I believe, is approaching him. He tries with the pistol, and then he pulls out the knife, and it's just what is it? A good death.
A good death is its own reward. Yeah.
Good death is its own reward. He just goes to jump, and then Superman comes in and grabs her. Oh, I remember seeing that on that, and then in the movie, I was just like, it's so cool. I mean, he was awesome throughout the entire movie. Like, when she's like, General Zod commands we take this one. He's like, I don't care what he says. I'm like, dude, you're awesome. That's like, he went out like a badass, and also he took her line and totally turned it on her, where it's just like, good death, its own reward, and they runs the plane into it.
Yeah,
I wish they would somehow find a way to bring him back, but.
I was just so used to seeing him, Chris Maloney, as Detective, Stabler on SVU.
He's my favorite SVU character.
Because he's been playing that character for over a decade up to that point, and that movie comes out, and I'm like, Chris Maloney's in this movie? Wait a minute. How's this happening? But he's great. He does a great job within his respective role. And the other thing is, the thing about Man of Steel, one of the best scenes that's kind of somewhat similar to that, as soon as Zod comes down and he wants to know where the Codex is at the Kent farm, and he threatens to kill Martha, if hypothetically, if they killed off Martha and Clark got there like right after he'd already committed the deadly act, but he's still like, you think you could threaten my mother? Like, when he grabs him before he's about to snap her own neck and just buries him in the cornfield, and then he buries him into the train, like barrels him through the gas station into the car and the train. Like, when you think you could threaten my mother, like, I have never in my entire existence of being on planet Earth seen Clark Kent / Superman get that angry and just unleash his anger on somebody like Zod, who is in equal parts power and strength to him because he's a Kryptonian. But for him to say, you think you could threaten my mother? Like, I lost my mind in the theater when that happens. Like, finally, we see a Superman that can actually get angry, show his emotions, and bury this guy.
Also, you want to talk about music you put on your iPod? I have Seasons by Chris Cornell on my phone because of this movie, because of that scene. Okay. And I love that song, and I remember Shazamming it when I got the Blu-ray, because I was like, I need to know what this song is, and I listen to it all the time because it's a great song.
That's great.
Yeah, that movie is. I love that movie. And I agree with you. I think it is really underrated. Mm-hmm. I think it gets overshadowed by I think it just gets overshadowed. I was going to say by like Wonder Woman, but also just by like comic book movies in general. I think it gets buried sometimes. I think that does have to do with the fact that it never got a direct sequel.
Never did.
BVS, which of course I love. I have the poster here. I love that. It's not a direct sequel. It is a continuation of the character. But I think that's kind of why, because like it never got a direct follow-up, which, I mean...
we never got an actual Man of Steel 2 as much as it should have happened.
I mean, I could talk about the Christian movie, but I talked about it at the beginning. If you guys want to hear... Ryan was actually on the episode. You can find on Take 3 Productions YouTube channel, which if you're watching the video version, you're right here on this channel, right? If you're listening to the audio version, go over and subscribe to Take 3. And you can hear me. I almost start crying over the movie on that. Because I want to keep talking about Man of Steel, because I love that movie so much. like there's so many moments. Like I still remember when he's working as the waiter at the bar or the
Oh yeah,
busboy.
the
That
busboy.
scene
Yeah,
I love, where it's just like the dude like pours the drink on him and everything. He's just and goes to punch him and just like I love the dude's face. Like it's like he punched a brick wall. It's just like what? And then Clark, the just the look and the move to go to him, and then she's like, he's not worth it. And then he
yeah.
just like takes the apron off and walks out, and then of course he just takes the dude's truck and destroys it. But it's such a great scene because you just like I like how like at first he steps in and he's trying to be like, hey, and then like he's trying to be calm, but once the dude pours the drink and throws the beer bottle at, or the I think it's
The
a can,
cup.
not a bottle.
It was a red cup.
Like
Yeah.
throws the cup at him, like he's just like ready to just like destroy the dude. Henry Cavill is so good as Superman. I think he doesn't get nearly enough, because he's not, Chris Reeves was playing a Superman that had trained with Jor-El for 12 years, I think it is.
A while, yeah.
He had trained with him. He had sort of prepared himself for this role, whereas this is a Clark that has been very much just like going with the flow, just trying to figure out who he is and working multiple jobs to where he can, take care of people and really trying to find himself. And so I like moments like that to where it's like, yes, Chris Reeves wouldn't have those moments, but that's because Chris was trained differently than this Clark. Yeah, that movie, like I still remember. I just remember like going to. I think it was on a Thursday, so I think I went back to school on Friday. I just remember having to talk to like all my friends about it. And just like, guys, you need to go and see Man of Steel because it's freaking awesome. Like it was just one of those movies. I had the same experience when I saw Rogue One when I came out of the theater, to where it was just like you have such a great positive film going experience that you just want other people to go and hopefully have that same experience. That was me with Man of Steel, and I still adore that movie. Like I said, I have my collector's Target edition of this movie. Also really nerdy me. So when I was in high school was where I got really nerdy to where I would start like buying clothing to try to like I would buy jackets that looked like like Han Solo's jacket or something. I started wearing like gray long sleeve shirts with gray short sleeve shirts because that's what Clark wears in this movie. And I started wearing that to high school. And it's not like I was like, hey guys, I'm Clark Kent, but it was just like to myself, I'm like, I know why I'm putting this on today, because that's who I was. Because this movie came out in 2013.
Yeah.
So I was because it came out in June.
Yeah, June.
So I would have been
13th,
finishing out my sophomore year of high school
there you go.
when this movie came out. So yeah, that movie is incredible. I love it so much.
It is.
So Ryan, we're going to start wrapping up here. Is there any final thing you want to talk about in regards to Superman?
I would just say that if you haven't had the opportunity to watch or read some of the things that we've spoken about tonight, here, whether it's, whether you're listening or watching this, check out Kingdom Come, check out Death of Superman, check out some of the other comic runs, because there's a lot of them, of course. I mean, he's been around for 80 years, and there's been a lot of writers, a lot of artists, a lot of people who have put out issues and books and other studies about Superman. So I'll say this. Superman, to me, I know some people may disagree with me on this, and that's fine, because that's the beauty of life. Some people like or dislike certain things that you may like, so who knows. Superman, to me, is the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time. He's the greatest superhero of all time. To me, he's my favorite fictional character of all time. To me, I mean, there's a lot of great fictional characters out there, I'm not going to lie. But Superman, to me, is my GOAT. He's my favorite, and he's going to be the GOAT for me when it comes to comic book heroes. I think he's the greatest of all time, because without Superman, the year or so later, Batman was created. A few years after that, Wonder Woman came out. You had all these different characters coming after Superman. So Superman, to a certain extent, he set the standard. Set the standard. He was the genesis. To a certain extent, he was the genesis of what comic book heroes can be and how we can be inspired by these. You say to yourself, it's a fictional character, but to me, Superman is in all of us. There's a part of Superman that lives in all of us. All we got to do is channel it and use it for the good of mankind. It's just like the speech that Jor-El gives us in Man of Steel. We can give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards. They will race behind you. They will stumble. They will fall. But in time, they will join you in the sun. In time, you will help them accomplish wonders. I mean, if that's not an inspirational speech by a character, I don't know what is. So Jor-El, Russell Crowe, you get an honorary Oscar, my friend. But at the end of the day, check out these comics, check out these movies, and also, last thing I want to say here, like I said, I didn't watch the show when it was originally airing, so that's my mistake. I'm learning about it now, or I'm experiencing more of it now, I should say. I am so looking forward to watching seasons 2 and 3 of Superman the Animated Series, featuring the voices of Tim Daly, Dana Delaney, Clancy Brown, among many, many other wonderful voice actors. Don't get me wrong. Looking forward to watching that. And if you haven't seen Superman the Animated Series, check it out. It's available on DVD. I hear they're gonna re-release it on Blu-ray at some point next year. Superman the Animated Series, complete series in one giant box set on Blu-ray. If that happens, I'm probably going to end up buying it.
So I'll have my money, Warner Brothers.
They can take all our monies, because I'm going to have it on DVD and Blu-ray, and I don't mind that. If you have it on multiple formats, who cares? At least you still have it.
Hey, look, you have the Blu-rays to watch at home and the DVDs to take on a car trip. That's
true, because I do have a portable DVD player. That's a true story.
That's how I look at these things.
Well, that's a good way to look at this. So at the end of the day, this was fun. Thanks for having me. I'm always happy to talk about Superman, my favorite superhero, my favorite character of all time. And this was great. Thanks for having me, Matthew Kearns.
You're welcome. What makes me laugh is when you were talking about Superman and like his idolized and all this, is it just shows, I guess, the difference in movie versions we love, because you thought about Jor-El, Russell Crowe. I was thinking about Marlon Brando, where he's like, the capacity for good. I said to you, my son. They could be a great people, Kal-El.
They wish
to be.
Yeah,
they only lack the light to show them the way.
It's a good speech.
Different, similar speeches, but it just made me laugh that I was thinking of saying that, and then I was just like, you went Russell Crowe. All right, I see how it is. So for me, this was a character that hit me at a very important time in my life, and showed me, Superman showed me when I was a kid, and still shows me now, the capacity of being good and doing good for others when your only reward is doing those good things, and that hopefully your actions will affect people in a positive way, and to just carry yourself in the turning the other cheek sometimes, but not turning your cheek, but not being afraid to defend yourself or others should it happen. And that doesn't mean violently, but he's just such an important character for me. He's not my favorite fictional character of all time. He certainly is my favorite comic book. Luke Skywalker still sits above, and then Indiana Jones is right below him, but I think Superman gets the number 3 spot right there. And I mean, hey, not bad for me, but yeah, Superman, I read so many different comics, watch so many different shows, because I adore this character so much. And I wrote a term paper in college on Superman and his impact on the world when he was introduced in the 30s, because I loved this character so much, and I got a 500 on it, and my professor said it was a fantastic paper. So that tells you how much I love Superman. So, Ryan, thank you so much for being my first guest. No matter what happens with this show, you're always going to be a part of its history. When this show eventually gets picked up by some giant network like SiriusXM, you'll always be the first. If that could happen. So Ryan, where can the good people find you online?
Yes, sir. You can find me on Anchor when I host a podcast called The Nerdcast, talk about movies past and present. New episodes drop every week. Check it out on Anchor, Google, Spotify. Also, check us out at Nerd Culture, our YouTube channel. Nerd Culture, everything about the nerd realm. We talk about whether it's movies, TV series, comic books, anime, whatever your heart desires. We try to bring that entertainment to you. And you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at It's Nerd Culture, and just check out our YouTube channel. New videos come out every single week, so don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff, and I'll be here waiting for you. Thanks for having me.
You guys should subscribe. It's great. I subscribed and like their Facebook page. They do a lot of fun stuff over there. You guys can find me at Kearns_Matthew on Twitter. You can find my personal YouTube channel, MattMovie611. You should also, if you are watching the video version of this, subscribe to Take 3 Productions. This is where the video is going to be living of the Fandom Podcast. Give us a like, give us a comment, let me know what topics you want to see. You can also subscribe to the audio version of this. I'm on Anchor as well. So if you're listening to the audio, you can go over to video or vice versa, whatever you want to do. Please stick close. You can also, if you want to, I set it up. I know nothing's going to happen. I have a Patreon account that I started. You can find it patreon.com/Kearns_Matthew, like my Twitter. If you want to come and, look, subscriptions to DC Universe and Hulu, they're not free, but, you'll help me to hopefully get better technology to give you guys a better show. But yeah, I'm really excited, guys, to go on this journey with this show. I think this is going to be a ton of fun. We haven't totally worked out. This is going to be, I think there's going to be 2 episodes every month. Maybe we'll eventually get to every week like Ryan over here, just one up in me. But please, guys, like and subscribe, do all those things. I will let you know, I don't have a guest lined up, but because on my Twitter poll, when I asked for what people want a topic to be for the first episode, was literally percentage difference. The next episode of the Fan Podcast is going to be on none other than the man with the hat and the whip, Indiana Jones. It was 34% Superman, 33% for Indiana Jones. So I look forward to bringing you guys that episode. Once again, thank you so much for watching and listening. I'll see you on the next episode.